Our next session is with Michelle Griffin and sponsored by Van Mar Lending. It's all about negotiation of self, time, and purpose, and how this equals empowerment. Often we think of negotiation as a business of a bargain, arrangement, or conclusion. Michelle will discuss how negotiation is also an active daily mindset of priorities and time management of our personal and professional lives. With balance of purpose, we can gain confidence to be empowered and fulfilled. Michelle Griffin is a seasoned professional of Chicago headquartered Northern Trust with 25 plus years experience in diversified financial services. She supports high net worth families, business owners, and professional service experts. She helps to identify their outsourced business development opportunities, explores their financial services and needs, as well as supporting family office infrastructure. Michelle was in the large corporate banking group, managing and developing Fortune 500 relationships in Wall Street and financial market institutional relationships. Michelle holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Purdue University and an MBA degree from Case Western Reserve University. So please welcome Michelle Griffin to moderate today's panel.
And thank you, Bronwyn, for your nice introduction and for, again, setting the stage for us and all of us here on the panel to discuss negotiation and its empowerment factors for you in your personal and professional lives. And the first thing that I'd like to do is introduce the other panelists today to discuss negotiation. And immediately to my left is Billy Toman. Billy Toman lives and breathes negotiation with a 20-year real estate career in the Coachella Valley. He is the president and managing broker of TLQ Realty and the former sales manager at Trilogy at La Quinta and Trilogy at the Polo Club. He has successfully negotiated over 1,700 real estate transactions, primarily in lifestyle-oriented communities. He's an expert at real estate negotiations, but just as important, Billy has the expertise of helping his clients negotiate their wish lists to find the perfect home and community to fulfill their lifestyle dreams, which is much more than a house and its amenities. Billy joins our panel to share negotiation tips in the area of real estate decision-making, but also how negotiating skills has also contributed to his personal life. Negotiation of life priorities began for him as a young boy, growing up on his grandparents' sheep and cattle ranch in Wyoming, where he learned about strong work ethic and determination, and his grandmother is actually recognized in the Cowboy Hall of Fame in the state of Wyoming.
All right.
Yeah, so there's quite a woman's influence there for Billy. He's also a former U.S. Navy rescue swimmer in San Diego, where he met his wife. They have lived in La Quinta since 2000. Billy has impacted his community through important youth mentoring work with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and he currently serves on its board of directors. Billy's other priorities include spending time with family and friends, hiking and playing golf, and I guess you do care about your handicap, as Rob was mentioning before.
No, I've golfed with him, both of us. We're working too much, it doesn't. We don't.
Next up, Valerie. You met her on the previous networking panel, and a lot has been shared about how fabulous Valerie is. We know she's a powerhouse attorney in the largest and fastest growing civil law firm here in the Coachella Valley. And it was also mentioned, and I want to just repeat, that she did know at the age of 5 that she wanted to be an attorney, even though she was surrounded by doctors in her home. So without question, she's had to negotiate a lot about her daily life since that young age. Valerie excels at helping her clients with the complex issues that arise from negotiating retirement and aging, which Rob has just been talking about, that we know is inevitable. It's coming eventually. And when necessary, she's advocating for them before or after their death. This level of delicate understanding comes from years, which you've heard again a little bit about, of balancing her heart and her head, which she negotiates every day. Thank you, Valerie. Kristen Martinez. It's her birthday. And as was mentioned earlier, a sponsor today, and we will be sharing birthday drinks with her and opening the keys to a door to door prizes later on Kristen. So as was shared before, Kristen is the president of Van Mar Lending here in Palm Desert. She epitomizes integrity, energy, hard work, and creativity in every aspect of her life. Under her leadership, Van Mar Lending was named one of the top 1% of mortgage loan originators in the United States 2 years, not one, 2018 and 2019. Nice. And this is following from her starting out in this industry, starting her own mortgage company at the age of 25. I think that's on the screen and worthy to be mentioned. A large part of Kristen's success is attributed to her mastery in the art of negotiation. It's part of everything that you do when you buy a house, right? When you're working with a real estate agent, you're looking to borrow the money to get the house. You need a good trust attorney to protect the house and need a financial advisor to bring it all together. That's one powerful network of people on the stage here today. Kristen's first love, however, is her family. She is a mother of 6. 6.
Crazy.
And that's five boys and 1 daughter. So the other way around from Rob's club.
I love women.
I think Kristen said her daughter is possibly the queen in her family and in her heart. Her daily goal is to, again, have impact with her family and children and be their best role model. She seeks to have a perfect balance between family and business. It's in that spirit that she's grown Van Mar and her family to be top competitors. She loves to travel and inspires to empower other people to be their best selves. She has a zest for life, a love of people that is extremely transparent in her daily life. Kristen is here today to share a bit of her journey. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
My background review on Rob is the longest of the whole group. The good news is you've already heard quite a bit about it, so I'm going to shorten it up. Thanks, Rob. Without question, Rob Shine's daily life is a constant negotiation of time to provide harmony to the priorities of his family, his clients, and his community. I know this. I personally know this because I've worked with Rob professionally for almost 20 years. So I've seen the changes, I've seen the impact, and it's my joy to be here with all of you today. Going back, again, Rob, professionally, a little bit more of information. You know he's the partner and managing director of Blanky Shine, and he also earned an investment management designation as an investment consultant from Wharton. He manages approximately $500 million in client assets, and that is $500 million. I'm just going to say that again, $500 million. It's quite a statement. For community, Robert serves many Coachella Valley non-for-profits. Notably, he was a founding board member of Xavier College Prep in 2006. And then after those 6 years, and he had moved on, they asked him to come back for 3 years, and he's a board chair there. Just 2 months ago, in November, he was the first gala chair for the Livestream Blood Bank, and out of the gate, they raised $350,000 for that charity. He's also the founder of the Society of the Few, Financially Empowered Women, and today's event. So clearly, a lot of influence and impact with women. Not only in his life, he mentioned his mother, his wife, his 3 daughters, are all here. He has 7 nieces as well. So we don't want to forget his son and then the 4 dogs. I think there's a new puppy in the family. Are they male dogs?
Yes, for sure.
Put
my foot down on that one. We got the balance there.
So in today's panel, Robert will be sharing with us how he negotiates not only the goal of supporting the hopes and dreams of his family, but also those of his clients along with their money. So thank you, Robert. Okay, before we begin our discussion, I sit down and entertain some questions and responses from these very successful entrepreneurs. We wanted to play a video to set the stage for our concept and our view today on one of the meetings of negotiation in our personal and professional lives. So it's about 2 minutes. Here we go. Right? How inspiring is that video to dare change? And that's negotiation of ourselves, right? And our own hopes and dreams. Just for a minute, I thought a little audience participation. So if everybody could just stand up for just a minute. Everybody?
Standing up too.
Okay. How do you think all of those women in that dare video felt as they empowered themselves? As they took a few steps back, thought, gathered, decided, and went for it. There's an expression about having power and how you hold yourself and how you feel when you experience that. For some people, it's the warrior pose. For some people, it's like, yeah. Some people, it's like muscles, fist pump. But most of us pick one of those. For just a minute, I want everybody to close your eyes. I want to think about a situation in your life where you dared yourself and you went for it. Or if there's something today you're thinking about in your near future and something's holding you back and you want to push through that, at the count of 3, I want to hear this room express that emotion. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes. Well done. That's awesome to see. Thank you. Okay. So that is the back. That's the backstop here for the first question. I'm going to take a seat and join the panelists. And we're going to talk about that daring change and that empowering feeling. And when that has happened to each of the panelists in their lifetime, either personally or professionally, and what you want to share with all of you today. So we'll start with Billy. Can you tell us about your dare? Dare for change.
Well, I think I made a couple of notes. One of the things I learned about negotiating is that you got to be a good listener, because if you're not listening, if you've ever been into a place, you're dealing with a salesperson and they're not listening to a word you said, they're so busy trying to sell you, they're thinking about what they're going to say next, but they're not really paying attention. So I just made a couple of notes. I liked Vicky's comment about with tragedy we find strength, and I think that in our lives, a lot of times it seems like impossible when we're going through tragedy, but when you look back, you're like, I wouldn't change a thing. That's really what made me. And for me, when I was 3 years old, I lost my dad. He was killed by a drunk driver. And so I was raised by my mom and my grandma and my other grandma and my aunts and my uncles. And so I was really lucky to have that kind of support group there. And in your life, you make thousands, like you literally make over 1,000 decisions a day. And when you're negotiating, I think you probably negotiate with yourself, number one. It might start with, am I washing my hair today, am I not? Not really a problem for me, but for other people maybe. It is right. So you're negotiating with yourself, number one. Then I find you're negotiating with your family, number two, whether it be your kids, your spouse. And then really like negotiating in work really becomes kind of the final thing. You really don't, you're not negotiating that nearly as much. And so, when I thought about kind of one of the times of challenge was obviously, losing my dad had a huge impact on who I became. But when I joined the Navy, I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL. That's why I joined the Navy. And so I did all the research on it. In order to be a Navy SEAL, you've got to have what they call a SEAL source rating. So you've got to be one of like 25 different job types. And so I also knew that if I'm joining the Navy, I want to get money for college. So I wanted the college fund. And I had this dream. I'd never been out of Wyoming. Well, I'd never been out of like the United States. I'd been to a couple of Western states. But I wanted to see the world. So my third negotiating thing that I wanted was I wanted to go to Australia. So here I am, a 19-year-old kid walking in to negotiate, what I want to do, and I laid out these are the 3 things I want, and sure enough, we can get you the college fund, we can get you, we can't necessarily guarantee to, Australia, but we can guarantee we'll get you a SEAL source rating. So I get in the Navy, I'm thinking I'm doing great, and all of a sudden, no one told me that, oh, by the way, the SEAL source rating that we gave you, we're understaffed, so we only have about 70% of the staffing needed, so you can't go. So at this point, you've made this commitment, you're in here, and you're not able to do that at this point. So, and I think it was a valuable lesson, because here it was, I thought I did a great job negotiating. I went in there, I got everything I wanted, but I didn't really know who I was negotiating against. And when you look at like when you're negotiating, a lot of times you don't know what you're up against. So like people say, oh, I'm a great at negotiating a car. Well, how often do you do it? I mean, you negotiate with yourself 100 times already today, you negotiate with your kids 20 times. You're only going to negotiate for a car like 20 times in your lifetime. And you're going up against somebody that's, they negotiate 100 times a day, right? So you never know what you're up against. And so what I found is that you've got to, it really comes down to your attitude. You're not going to be able to control everything that you do when you're negotiating. I had no control over that. You fast forward, when I finally made the decision not to become a Navy SEAL, I met with my grandma. My grandfather had just passed away, and I didn't want to put her through the pain of knowing what she, having someone knock on the door and say, hey, I'm not, Billy's not here anymore. And so when I went back to the Navy, they said, oh, great, we'll send you to a boat. Well, they ended up sending me to a whole misfit ship. And I thought, this is like terrible. Like, I'm here for another year and a half, and I'm going to be stuck on here. They had kids actually got arrested for robbing a bank. They had guys selling marijuana out of the rack. It was almost like that movie Down Periscope, and there were just a bunch of misfits. But I said, look, I can't control any of that. All I can do is control my own attitude. And with that, it ended up being a blessing, because all the guys that were in were either getting kicked out or they wanted out, and it allowed me to shine to the top. And here I was at 2021 being selected the senior sailor of the quarter for the entire squadron against guys that have been in for like 19, 20, 30 years. And so so it was important to know that sometimes it was tragic, it seemed terrible, I thought I didn't do a good job, and at the end of the day, it all kind of worked out.
So you negotiated your mindset as well.
Yep.
Yeah, great. That's an awesome example. Valerie?
So I had mentioned earlier, because I didn't want to spoil, because I know I was supposed to talk about this in this panel, I would say my moment was when I had to confront having to uproot myself and move cross country. And I was going to say, but I keep dodging the filming there, so I know this is going to be on tape, so my husband will revel in this, that he was right. Mark, you were right. I fought him for a very long time in moving out here, and so if I'm connecting myself to the video, which I had to choke down because I find that so emotional and so empowering to watch. And I can remember where I literally was, my feet, I said to Michelle yesterday, I didn't really take a step back. I firmly planted my feet and I would not move. And if I'm going into negotiation, I was negotiating with my husband on his career bringing us out here. Because remember I mentioned I can do my job anywhere with the cell phone and the laptop? Well, then his career is bringing us out to California. And I'm like, what is going on? So I'm negotiating with him that no, I am going into a partnership. I worked really hard for this, and I don't want to take, if there are any attorneys in here, the last thing you want to do is take another bar exam. So California, of course, doesn't give reciprocity to anyone, and he picks the state that gives reciprocity to no one. So I was negotiating with him, and I can make this work. And we ended up living bi-coastally for 6.5 years. So that's the length of the time that I fought him on this, let's relocate. What he was right about, which I thought was absurd, was we are more powerful as a couple, personally and professionally, in the Coachella Valley than we are back here in the suburbs of Philadelphia working in these big cities. For those of you who may know my husband, he does health and wellness, and so Bronwyn can probably attest to, people out here are invested in their health and wellness. Back east, you hibernate, more than half the year, so how's his career supported in that? So I was negotiating with my husband, but I was also negotiating, and sorry to the men here, but I was negotiating with 3 really arrogant male attorneys who would say one thing when we were in the conference room about the feasibility of me working bi-coastally and only having to be in the state of New Jersey or Pennsylvania when I needed to, and then immediately after I left, they all got amnesia. And it was this 2-year, very toxic, damaging to my health dance that I continued to do. When I look back now, I'm like, what an idiot. Like, why was I pushing my husband, no, we're not doing this, and clinging on to these jerks who all they cared about was the money I was bringing in and wanted me to be a partner, but were treating me like I was a child because I was the only woman. And I don't know if I can say this. I know I already said S-H-I-T, but they kept saying to me,
They've heard it before.
Well, they kept saying to me, why are you such a bonehead? Tell your husband to put on his big boy pants and come back here and make a career, or that you're just working here, that's how it is. And I said, the difference is I like my husband on top of loving him. You all hate your wives and you spend your life here. And I have to be the benefactor of that. And so after 2 years of trying to figure out what I was going to do, the crescendo was, and my husband is British, we spend every Christmas in England, and it was a 2 to 3 hour walk through the botanical gardens and woods in Sheffield, England, where I couldn't feel my face because it was so cold, that I cannot even remember what the conclusion of that conversation and why I had an aha moment. But after that walk, I came home and I gave my notice. And I did not know what I was going to do. I did not have a job, but I knew what I said to them is, what you can't take is my heart and you can't take my mind. Because incidentally, they changed the locks 2 hours after I gave notice while I was in the building. So I was like, I'm in the building. Why are you changing the locks?
Man, Valerie, that is really a special story. Thank you for sharing it, because you clearly had struggled with your priorities and the negotiation of your priorities. And it sounds like you made the right decision.
I did.
You did. So thank you. Kristen.
All right, well, that video is really impactful for me. I get the chills every time I watch it. I don't know why. I think all of us have different situations. It was really hard for me to pick mine because I have a few, but I was actually talking with my best friend, who is my mother, and she's here, and we were talking about me I went to college at Colorado State and I played volleyball for them. And I think a lot of us associate ourselves as we're growing up with whatever we're doing at the time or whatever we're majoring. So I was an athlete, and that's all I knew. And I am a person, you never tell me no, or you can't do this, or you can't, because I will prove you wrong, or I'll do my best to try. And my roommate and I had decided that we were moving. We rented a U-Haul. I had a pit bull. I don't know, I feel like every college student has a pit bull. And I had a U-Haul, but I had no idea where I was gonna go. And so the night before we were gonna climb into it, she canceled on me because she was from Colorado, and she said, I don't want to go. I don't have the courage to do this. And so I was there with my pit bull in my U-Haul, and I said, all right, it's either New York or San Francisco. So I called my best friend, of course, my mother, and I said, which one? She said, well, it better be San Francisco because that's a lot closer to me. So we drove that U-Haul down to San Francisco by myself, no job, no place to live, no plan. I don't really, sorry, have that much. I'm working on that aspect of it.
We'll talk.
We'll talk, yeah. But it took a lot of courage to keep going down that road because I had no idea why I was headed in that direction. Everything I knew, I was an athlete, I didn't know how to do this, but I knew I wanted to be in corporate America. I knew I wanted to work from minute one, and I had the great support of my family. So one of my mom's favorite memories is following me in my car with this huge U-Haul going through the streets of San Francisco, having no idea where I'm going, and trying to negotiate a place to live and stay. And I was just strong enough to keep pushing forward. I don't know why, but it ended up navigating a phenomenal life for me. So that's how I pushed through the dare to, I guess, keep moving forward. So it works.
That's courage.
Yeah.
That's with a capital C. Kristen. Rob. Family.
So in terms of negotiating, we negotiate every aspect of our lives from when we first wake up to balancing to everything that we're doing. And if you're a guy, it's easier than it's for a girl, because women are taking care of not just yourselves, but everybody. And that's important, right? It's not something that's new, but it's something why we're here today. You're constantly negotiating. So, our negotiation, sort of funny story for you, as you ask, in terms of family, started when we were driving our first daughter. She's in the back. My wife and I'm driving. My wife's in the front seat. My daughter's 3 years old. This is Taylor. You've heard this story, maybe you haven't. But, in my practice, in my profession, I sit in front of clients all day long, and if you give a client human nature choice between A or B, human nature is you will choose A or B. So I've got a 3-year-old, and I don't remember what we were actually asking Taylor, so I'm driving, I go, hey Taylor, A or B on a decision. And Taylor at 3 years old she says from the back seat, I don't like those, what else is there? And I immediately looked over to my wife and I said, "You're smarter than I am. Take this. I'm out. I'm out." Like, she's already out negotiated me, right? And at 3 years old, and she's still doing it, man. Really. So you learn early on, again, family dynamics, how to negotiate. I think one of the things that I found very interesting through my practice that's been very successful, as well as living in a house of women, is what Billy was saying, is just other person's point of view. The most successful negotiations comes from listening and understanding other people's point of view. Let me give you an example. So if you were to be in international business school, I had class in international business, and they spent probably half the semester talking about when you travel, understand the culture. That's why we travel. I take my kids everywhere. That's part of like learning outside the classroom. Travel is amazing because everywhere you go is different cultures. You can't communicate, you can't connect, you can't even decide to negotiate anything unless you understand different cultures, right? Different cultures have different things. So it's our responsibility. It doesn't matter if you're traveling or if you're with a friend across the table or with a client, to take that time to listen and truly understand what's important to them. Because oftentimes what you're assuming is not the case. What you're thinking is not even close to being the truth. You know, like so just get outside, change your mindset, and truly turn your mind off and just listen. That's something you guys all know, but for guys, it's very important. You know?
And you do so very well. Next, going on to the next question. We don't need to go all in a row, so I'll just start with Kristen. Okay. Personal and professional, as we set the stage here today, negotiation, it shows up every day in our professional and our personal lives. And so I'm going to ask each of the panelists to share an example. I'm going to let you pick, personal or professional, in the interest of time. And if we don't get a chance to do both, or if you think you have two quick ones, let's hear them both.
I can give two quick ones. As a mother of 6, I think my kids negotiate me daily. It's crazy. And they always say the most dangerous negotiation is the one you don't know you're in, and they do that to me all the time. And the one thing, I think earlier someone was asking something about interviews and resumes and how to negotiate that and how to separate yourself. And the one thing I always tell my kids is make yourself known. Be different. Go up to your teachers and shake their hand and thank them for what they're doing for you. Go into the classroom and make them know the work you're putting in when you're not there. And I think that's the difference between today and negotiations. And I try to teach them, please go out there, thank the people, have an interaction with them, set yourself apart, be different. And I think that's part of my kids negotiating. If you ask my daughter who's here, we have a game. We always go to dinner and have to get in with a party of 8. You guys know how hard that is, how much more time we wait. And so it's our goal to send her out of the car and see how she can negotiate her way into getting us in faster. And so it's learned behavior from the personal aspect, but they're negotiating us all the time, which makes you need to educate yourself and put yourself in and let them understand why you're telling them no or yes. And make them believe that this is the right answer for them in the negotiation of family. In my business, everybody knows owning a mortgage company is, I don't know if anybody's gotten a mortgage in the last 5 years. It's easier if I take your DNA, probably. But it's a wonderful thing, but we're negotiating underwriters, we're negotiating rates, we're negotiating just borrowers and their emotions. It's such an emotional experience. And what I've learned is never accept a no. And so we my husband said, we either get an approval, a denial, or a suspense. And a suspense to me is a heck yeah. We're going to get this person in a house. And we don't really, and my career has grown on the fact that we will not accept a no. And it's like, maybe not right now, but we're going to turn this into a yes, and we're going to earn this family a home. And we research it. And so I think just like getting in a party of 8, it's educating yourself, knowing, I know the mortgage business really well, I research it, I become well educated on when they're going to call me so I have appropriate responses, and really set yourself apart. And I think that's what helps me grow my business and my kids and personal life. So it's just the two things I have.
It's a balance.
Yes, it is
a balance. Thank you, Kristen. Valerie?
Well, I think it's obvious with, I'll talk a little more about personal. I think it's obvious that my entire life is about negotiating because of being an attorney, and I have to figure out culturally, what your background is, how you're raised, what is important to people, and why are they fighting over this green vase,
Yeah.
And can I go find it somewhere and mix it around? But to understand the dynamics within families, and to understand how to explain to a parent, how do you value children, and how do you protect children when you have dynamics where there are family members that I always say are like not in favor. It happens. Every family has a dynamic to deal with. So that's an obvious piece. But literally from the moment my alarm goes off or Winston gives me a lick to wake me up, I am negotiating with myself every minute. Imagine accounting for every 6 minutes of your life. That is my job, so it's hard to separate it in your personal life. And so I'm trying to figure out, how am I meeting the needs of I have 2 animals and
a husband.
And a husband, and I'm negotiating every day. I just said to my husband last night, I'm not seeing my polo pony Annabella as much as I want to because of my work schedule, and then I have obligation to you and I have obligation to Winston. And so every day I wake up, I look at what's on my calendar and I start juggling, like, what can I move? How can I get something done? What am I trying to prioritize today? And then I have all these external forces that are coming at me from the minute I walk into my office. And so it's just, I live and breathe negotiation, and it starts with myself every day.
As a group, when we were, we met previous today, of course, and Rob was reviewing his 7 key elements that he spoke about today. And one of them is planning. That's Valerie.
Yeah.
She is definitely a planner, so thank you for sharing that in a good way. It's admirable. You have a lot on your plate every day for taking care of a lot of your clients.
Yeah.
So Billy, negotiation, I think you talked a little bit about mindset as well.
Yeah, I think one thing you have to look at is who you're negotiating with. So, a lot of times you're negotiating with yourself. There's a lot of times you're negotiating on your own behalf. So it's you versus somebody else. And I think there's times, like in my business, where I'm just a neutral third party. While I maybe get the benefit of making money by doing it, but I'm really trying to help 2 different people. So I think from like just one example that kind of comes up, it wasn't a huge like transaction, but I had a case where I had a couple from Canada looking to buy a house. We were $15,000 apart, and it just ended. It was kind of done, and I was like, how do we get this thing kind of figured out? And so I had to get a little bit creative and say, well, these people from Canada can't live here all summer. They're not going to be here anyway. And the people that are selling their house, they need time to find a house. So I was able to look and say, well, these people spend about $3,000 a month on their house. So I said, what if we lower the price by $15,000, but you're able to rent the house back for $1 a month for the next 5 months. You're still saving the $15,000 you would have spent, and the buyer is actually paying the price that they're happy to do. And so it wouldn't have happened unless I kind of knew what the backstory was and how to kind of get creative. And I say that, one thing I'll say with negotiating too is that usually if someone's asking you to do something that's not in the norm, like don't do it, because usually that's when something doesn't work out. So that just happened to be a case where it did. And from a personal standpoint, I think kids are by far the best negotiators. They're just shrewd at it.
Theme.
So when you do sales, you're taught to do like there's different closing techniques. So like Rob talked, like the alternative choice or A or B. So you just naturally, you don't realize it's happening a lot of times when you do stuff, but it just naturally happens. So there were 2. My daughter did one where she somehow wanted to watch TV, and I didn't understand what she was saying. So I said, "What, you want to watch TV?" She's like, "That's a good idea, Daddy." I was like, "That's a good assumptive close." I was like, what did happen there? But my all-time favorite, now keep in mind, she's 3 years old when this happens. My wife and I had gone to a New Year's Eve party, and we got those funny little plastic top hats, the kind that don't fit on your head. If you rub them just wrong, you're going to get a paper cut on your finger. So New Year's Day, it's kind of chilly outside. She and I are taking a walk, and she says, "Daddy, you want to put on the hat?" I said, "No, I'm not wearing the hat." She's like, "Daddy, please wear the hat." I said, "No, I'm not wearing the hat." "Daddy, please wear the hat." I said, "Lauren, I'm not wearing the hat." She says, "Daddy, are you afraid the wind's going to blow your hat off?" I said, "Yes, Lauren, I'm afraid the wind's going to blow my hat off." "Don't worry, Daddy, there's no wind today. You can wear the hat." Like, holy cow, a 3, right?
That is a great example.
There you go.
So, as I said, there's a theme here, and when I step back and I think about it, it's the balance of family, children, loved ones, the furry animals, and the fur babies, and spouses or significant others, which is interesting. It's disarming because in our business lives, we typically have a little bit more authority in how we're balancing our priorities every day. Could each of you maybe speak to another example Rob, you're up.
Yeah, so this is when I went back to, we all have time to learn about finance. I was in college and I had 3 internships. Shocker, overachiever. So I had 3 internships, and I realized I could, go have fun later. But at the end of the day, one of my in the financial services industry, one of the guys that I was interning for, he basically said, "Do you realize that every time you stand in line, you should have a book underneath your arm you should be reading?" Because at the time, so Amazon delivers everything to us today, right? Wasn't the case back then. We actually had to stand in line for things. Back then, there was a stat. An average human spent 2.5 years in line. His whole point was, don't waste that time, right? So today I do podcasts and a bunch of other stuff, another tip that I didn't give you last time. The point of that is, most recently I heard a podcast that it's not very well known or circulated, but it was a podcast about Oprah. Oprah Winfrey was on set and she was filming The Color of Purple, and this is way back when. This is her first break, first movie motion picture break. Back then, no cell phones. She gets an urgent message that her sister calls, so she has to go off set into town, get on a payphone, and call in, and the sister is at an auto dealership calling her with an urgent message saying, "You have to wire me money because I got the white Mercedes right now, and it's going to be sold if you don't get me money." She's like, "I haven't even been paid. This is my first." My point of the whole story is, Oprah is really famous. She's like, "Listen, that was the first time in my life I didn't realize that my own family is going to come at me and take." So I see wealth within family, right? You're negotiating. You want to help, but at that moment in time, people take advantage of you. And so I work in the world of investments, money, and family, and wealth. So we see all of that. So clients come to me all the time with, "Hey, how do I handle these conversations," right? It's a negotiation. And while we're best intended, right, we want to help, we're empathy, you got to take care of yourself first. You got to make certain that you don't give to somebody else, then all of a sudden you just got rid of your life preserver, right? So let me give you another example. Clients use me in a case where son or daughter just graduates, they've got a wonderful MBA and they've got a wonderful business plan. Son or daughter has this wonderful business plan, and what do? Mom and dad savings and loan. Will you fund $100,000 right out of the gate? Here's my business plan. So they often have me be the intermediary. Meaning, "Hey Johnny, how are you? Wonderful, congratulations, you graduated in 6 years, that's fantastic, and it's a 4-year degree." Because I know about that because we fund it every step of the way. But at the end of the day, I just sit there and listen and have him tell me all the aspects of the business plan. And ultimately, my job's not to shut it down. My job is just to be, "Well, that's interesting," and just continue to ask questions. So find your network that can help you on difficult conversations, because you don't have to be the one to say no. But at the end of the day, clients come to me, and another one I gave to my client, I told you earlier, is it's not no, but it's no for right now. That's an important one, right? It's not no, it's a no for right now. I need you to do these steps before I then can perform for you. And if they're going to ask you for money, then you have to be able to have some standards as it relates to that. So I see that in my professional life every day, and so that's how we sort of negotiate our way out of that.
I've spent a lot of time personally, and I think as you heard from my bio, in the financial services industry, and my latest chapter was with family offices of significant wealth. It's dealing with looking forward for multiple generations. And without getting into all the statistics, which you probably already know, and Rob also quoted a few of them, it is not an if. It is for sure that the creator of the wealth, the inheritors of the wealth, and the stewards of the wealth, there will be dysfunction, there will be miscommunication, there will be drug or alcohol abuse. It has to do with contribution, sense of self, principles, and at the end of the day, getting family members to talk about the business and their money behind the business and the family dynamic behind the business is what makes all the difference. It comes down to the family relations, and it's about, I mentioned it earlier today, hopes and dreams. It's about the stories. It's being responsible for the creation of wealth and the family values and principles and purpose. And with that, family members who differ and don't get agree, may not like each other, or will the next generation who wants to do something different still has room to breathe and grow and change, but still honor those values, principles, and purpose. And it doesn't even have to be the case of significant wealth. It can just be a really good, strong conversation with family members. And that's still part of the overall conversation of negotiation that we're having today. We have a couple more minutes before we move on to the next question. So if anyone else has a great story to share,
Well, I
I've
would
heard
just
so
add
many.
to Rob's
and they'll
thing
pass
is that you create the network, but then don't be afraid to ask the network. I think that's the one thing. Pride gets in the way a lot of times that people don't want to talk about those things. Like I said, there's a lot of things you're great at probably negotiating. There's probably some things you're not as familiar with. Don't be afraid to ask somebody for help, because again, you don't know what you don't know. So you might think you're really good at negotiating, but you might not realize that you thought you got everything you wanted, but you're actually being manipulated or persuaded in different
That's
directions.
a great point. I don't know if Delynn brought this up. Maybe she did, and I apologize if I'm repeating. But Delynn brought this up when we were in my office, and she's like, I'm going to share this on her panel. And I thought it was so powerful as it relates to building a network, right? And what Delynn said was, listen, I may not know how to do something, but I can tell you that my network is so strong that within 2 phone calls, I not only know how to do it, but I can have somebody help me get it done. That's how strong my network is. And I think that was so powerful. Like when we build a network, when you're going through school and you're building with friends, and it's okay, in the financial services firm, believe it or not, my firm, I spend more time asking questions, and they're coming to me for expert advice. No, I'm listening. I'm asking more questions. It's okay to ask a million questions. We don't know what we don't know. But having that network to basically say, hey, 2 degrees, especially in the Coachella Valley, 2 degrees of separation, that literally could happen like no problem. But that network of like, it's okay, ask the question, find somebody who can, to get you to where you need to be is really important.
And we're women, we can do it all at the same time. We can cook, we can smell people, we can negotiate, right? It's a blessing of what God gave us. It's incredible. So
Yeah,
that's
great.
pretty powerful group of women in this room, I'll tell you that much.
Definitely, I think you can hear the trend or the theme here about the power of network and negotiation. Because when you're negotiating yourself, you sometimes have to push through to ask from that network, which was talked about in the panel before. Ask for that help and support. And that's part of daring yourself for change and going for your dreams. And as a community, we can all help each other along those lines. So great, thank you for sharing that. I think we can move on to the next question. And this is around advice. And so I think that's again, something that we wanted to interact with all of you in talking about negotiation, and something that it pertains to that we've learned and experienced in our careers that we would want to share with you today is more or less a takeaway, a bit of advice. I'm sure all of you could give this panel a lot of advice as well, but that's the question that we wanted to move to prior to going to our question and answers with all of you. So I'm going to start with Valerie.
Okay. I think, I don't remember what we had decided, but I know that Rob had asked me, because I made a comment throughout our different plannings, that I think a concept that I would like to share as my best advice, and I'd also like to disarm it, because I think that when someone says self-care, I think people interpret it as being selfish. And so I focus every 2 weeks, not every 90 days.
That's good.
And in mine, it's just as a former athlete and playing polo, it's a brutal, really, Lauren, you could say being on a horse, it is not kind to your body, so you have to continue to nurture your body to make sure you can continue in that sport, in the equestrian world. And so self-care, I think, when I say I'm negotiating with myself every day, it's because I focus on I have to be okay so that I can perform at work. I'm not just performing for my clients, but as a partner in the firm, people are relying on me to make sure that they are busy and that we are growing our firm and that there is a future. I have to look at, am I healthy to be the best wife I can be? Am I healthy and taking care of myself that when my friend needs me, I can give me to her or anyone in my family? And so for me, it's about, I'm militant about my sleep. We were talking about what are non-negotiables. Sleep is a non-negotiable to me, and I had to wake up an hour earlier today, and I was not happy. My body was just like, no, 2 snoozes. But it's also getting some sort of fitness, because it's not just about what your body looks like, but it's part of my mental health. My job is stressful. I take in a lot of emotion with people planning for their death and dealing with death, and so I have to make sure I'm processing that out. And then how I eat, but It also is about how do I spend the free time that I have very little of. And so people were laughing at me yesterday. My husband, and Michael, has been very well, has FOMO. And my animals do too. They don't want to miss out on anything. And I celebrate it. JOMO is my thing, the joy of missing out. And so that's part of my negotiation and my self-care that I think, can I afford to be out 4 times this week? Can I negotiate with myself about how I'm going to be at the end of the week and what else I have to accomplish? And so self-care, to me, is something I think people need to focus on and stop thinking that it is selfish, because if you don't put yourself first, then you can't be what you need to be in any of the roles that you're expected to be, particularly as women.
She's a planner. Hey, Billy, why don't you
Well, yeah,
share?
I think the great thing about meeting yesterday is we had a lot of the similar thoughts, I thought. It just kind of naturally came out. So I absolutely agree. We were talking sometimes, one thing that kind of commonly came up was the fact that no, don't accept no for an answer. And I was saying that in this day and age with the Me Too movement, I think there are some times when, you don't need to negotiate. No is okay, you know what I mean? Especially as a woman. But I think if I could just say one thing, like negotiating, I would say, ask a question. When someone asks you a question, ask them a question back, especially when it comes to negotiating, because you need to understand where their perspective's from. So I get it all the time where people say, well, is there a golf course in this neighborhood? And so I'll say, well, do you play golf? Because the reality is I could just say no or yes, but I need to understand. And half the people will say, yeah, I play golf all the time. The other half are like, no, I don't play golf. I don't really want that in here. So my answer's got to change based on what that question is. So anytime you're trying to negotiate something, feel free to ask questions. If they ask you a question, ask them a question so you get an understanding of kind of where that's coming from. The other thing I'd say, which kind of ties into personal life first, I think from working with so many people who are really retiring, and what I find is people plan. And for most people, they get out of college, it's all about work, then it's all about their family, and then it's all about work again for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they retire, and they plan for retirement, but they don't really plan for what's beyond that. So what I see a lot of times is people lose that little bit of sense of purpose. So I literally had a guy that coached his whole life, had no kids, he retired, and within probably 4 months, he realized he was bipolar. It was a whole family dynamic, and it was the change of retiring. He didn't have a plan. He didn't know what to do. He lost all of his structure. So what I would say is it's really important to have a purpose. So whether you're young, whether you're older, you can retire and play all the time, but find something that you're passionate about. You can spend an hour or two a week even, if it's volunteering. I would say it's different for different people. You might like to ride horses. For me, it was mentoring, because I had that background. But try to find that, because what you're going to find is you feel so good giving back. It's going to make you feel better. It probably ties right in with the wealth or the wellness part later on. But just make sure you always keep that. Find that little bit of purpose.
Great.
I would
Rob?
just say, so my wife got me for Christmas, it is Masterclass. You've probably seen it advertised. And in preparation for this, I took the Masterclass for negotiating.
You did?
The FBI negotiator is part of the whole subscription. You can pick anybody. Did Chef Ramsay too, because that's fun. But the FBI negotiator, Billy touched on it, and it was subtly, because Billy was very skilled at this. But it's important because the FBI negotiator talked about it, and then I think Carissa talked about, hey, when I go to a new place, I'm in Denver and I don't know people, and how do it's also networking and negotiating. Watch this. And I actually did this with my wife one day. After she got this, I heard this in class, I was so excited. And I literally used this technique at home, and I literally pretty much got in a fight for it. But I don't even think you know. But it's called mirroring. Okay?
Yeah.
And you just mirror the exact words that was just said to you by the person. It's like a follow-up question, right? Is there a golf course? Is there a golf course by? Human nature is they will then reply with, yeah, I like to play golf, and golf's important to me, and they roll right into their passion. Or the chicken's good today at lunch. The chicken's good today at lunch? Yeah, I like chicken. It was really a way that... So the FBI negotiator actually legitimately said that's the #1 technique on a hostage situation. Because people want to hear themselves talk.
#1 technique for a hostage situation, #1 technique to get in a fight with your wife?
I was like, I'll kill you if you were my husband and you did that.
It doesn't work at home. It doesn't work at home.
You became the hostage.
Yeah. So, but yeah, literally, I was. I don't know if you know this, but all day, and at the end of the day, you didn't get it, and I was like, this isn't working.
It didn't work with your daughter either.
But when you go, let's go. Chris, you're in you're in a networking event, and somebody's like, oh yeah, I like this, and you just repeat what they say, and then that will get them to share more about themselves, and it's helping you network in that maybe uncomfortable environment. But for whatever reason, it's one of those human techniques that actually works. Another one is, and I use this in my practice, feel, felt, found. That's the 3 Fs. And so, again, I manage money for a living, but at the end of the day, I'm handled with, on a daily basis, anything that the news is talking about, no questions asked, that's about 1 million objections of why not to invest today, right? So last year at this time, at the very beginning of the year, the geopolitical world wasn't very favorable. The economic environment, the fear of the recession for the United States was very imminent. The Federal Reserve was also questionable whether they're going to be accommodative or raise interest rates, because our president was fighting with the Federal Reserve chairman, and a whole bunch of myriad of things that were happening. And clients were constantly giving me all these, all these objections. And I would use the technique, which is I feel the way you're feeling. I've often felt the way you felt because of the last tweet or the headline. But what I found is, here are the fundamentals. The S&P 500, corporate earnings, which drive the markets, so I laid out the economic base case as to why we have conviction that you need to stay invested in the market. That translates into 25% on the S&P 500. We're managing $400 million worth of clients' assets. That's $100 million worth of appreciation. We're now $500 billion. Negotiating and communicating are very important. We have very happy clients right now. But if I went to the opposite side of that and didn't take my time to really understand where they're coming from, have the empathy, ask the questions, but also get my expertise. That's why they're hiring me, to help them say, no, my conviction is, our homework says, you need to be, we're okay. $100 million. So on a daily basis, that really helps in the art of negotiation.
And with that thought, I think it was on the news this morning that the impeachment proceedings are going forward, and mirroring your earlier comment, how should we vest our assets today based on that news?
So I can 100% jump into that. But Diane will kill us.
Yeah, I was like, you never talk politics. What are you doing, Michelle? Yeah, no, I just wanted to mirror you a little bit. But that is absolutely so true in financial advisory work. What's your crystal ball today?
Don't talk politics and religion when negotiating.
Right?
Those are probably the wisest words said today. You want to maybe repeat that again? We're talking politics and religion.
Don't ever talk politics and religion when negotiating.
Okay.
Even if people are sharing their story, you
Yeah.
just listen. Whether you believe them or don't believe them, just stay neutral.
100%.
Smile and nod.
And smile and nod. Yes, Kristen.
I think in negotiation, we were taught from a young age to not have the last word, right? So especially in negotiating with your spouse, it's pretty interesting. Even when you want to go to dinner. But I was in this situation where I lived in San Francisco, and I was tired of living in the city, and I wanted to move out where it was a little more reasonable and a little less traffic, so I wanted to move to Daly City. I didn't know anything about it, so educate, right? That was my first problem. And I went and viewed this incredible condo that was just the cutest thing ever, and I was so excited. I couldn't believe it was vacant, because nothing was vacant in the city or Daly City at the time. And I was so excited. I called my dad and I said, hey, I love this place. I want to be in this place. He goes, Kristen, something's got to be wrong with it. Why is it available? And he said, so just offer a certain price, like $400 less or something at the time. I said, Dad, you're crazy. You don't understand. I want this place, And he said, Kristen, something's wrong with it. I swear I got that place for $400 less because he told me to throw out my price and wait. And I waited, and it was the most torture, like in real estate, right? Until they accept your offer for 24 hours, you're like, and you're silent. And I waited and I got it. But I tell you what, I moved into it and I never saw the sun again. I didn't know Daly City was so foggy. Nobody wanted to live there. The day I went and saw it, it was beautiful with all the sun. So there was a reason I didn't educate myself. But so that's some of my advice. When you're negotiating with somebody, throw out your offer and wait for their response. Don't assume that what they're thinking or what they're going to tell you, or don't assume what the other person's ever thinking, because you'd be surprised. If you guys throw out what you want, you might just happen to get to eat dinner where you want, right, honey?
Also on that, when you throw it out, the next person that speaks loses.
Yes.
It's called the pregnant pause, and it could be deafening silence, it could be a minute. When you're negotiating and you throw that out there, be bold, be confident, know what you want, throw it out there, and just stand behind it, but do not break your silence. The next person that speaks loses. It's true.
Why is that called the pregnant pause?
I don't know. 9 months?
I thought silence is golden. Either way. Those are really, really good pieces of advice. And I think dovetailing also what you're saying there is about, which I experienced in my banking career, was taking the emotion. And I'm thinking again about the DARE video, and in each of those women, even the little girl, before she ran into the water, they all took a couple steps back. So what was happening in those couple of moments before going, I'm going? That's collection, right? Collection of thought, making the decision to go for it, but taking the emotion or the fear or the panic or I can't do it or I'm not good enough, putting that aside and being focused about going forward. So
it kind of ties into Rob's mindset, attitude. It's kind of the same thing. So,
and then I think the other that I would say that it's key, and you mentioned masterclass, and it's something that I picked up about the keys to being a good negotiator and whether you want to be a master at it. And really that comes to your passion and your belief in yourself and what you want. And when that's true, and you can be focused, and you know how to do the pauses at the right time, and you have confidence, and that's the theme today, confidence in yourself, and you go for it, you will shine. And you will have negotiation on your side.
Tie on that too, personality. So there are some people that like to negotiate. I don't care what I've had people that are like, just give me your best deal. They want to negotiate, and then we get done, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll do that if you throw in some extra cabinets. I'm like, that's not what you said. You said you didn't want to negotiate, right? So there are some people that just like to negotiate. There are some people that like the confrontation is absolutely like, So I think you have to look within yourself too, because it's one thing to be like, okay, I can do this. But again, it's another thing to utilize the help of other people that really are good at it, that really enjoy it. You know what I mean? If you don't like that, if you don't like, all the pressure, don't walk into a car dealership and try to buy a car by yourself, because it's not going to be a very fun experience. But if you like that, go to every one, you know what I mean? So it's just utilizing the tools. But there are people that like that. Rob, you guys have seen it, I'm sure. There's some people that just like to negotiate. They just like to haggle. It's just a fun thing to do.
They learned it.
I was just like, the pregnant pause is the auto dealership. Okay? Whatever know your price, know what the car costs, do your homework before you walk in, know what you want, be prepared to walk away. And that's when you use that pregnant pause. Nope, here's what I want. Don't ever tell them what you could afford. Don't ever tell them, negotiate in cash. I want to buy it in cash. Like, oh, nope, I want to get a loan. Wait, that's not what you said. So there's some things. So the pregnant pause is an auto negotiating, where you just look them in the face and be like, oh, here's another one real quick. You're checking in. So checking in a hotel for the first time. There's two. Mom taught me a lot. My mom was awesome. Checking into the hotel for checking in, and they're like, oh, where would you like any preference on property? What do you believe is the best based upon your inventory? Where would you put me? Because you're using that other person, hopefully it's a person that has high standards. But but what you want is, you want that person, because no one wants to disappoint somebody, right? Because they're going to be at the front desk after you check in, and you look at them and you're like, that's your stand. You could always switch, right? If you don't like your room, but like, where would you like to see? So that's sort of negotiating when you walk in. And the other one is when you're in a conflict on the phone, or customer service conflict, you and I are going to become very good friends. And they turn around like, what are you talking about? No, you and I are going to become very good friends, because all of the time that we're going to spend together solving this problem, by the time we're spending together, we are going to become very good friends. You wait and see how fast they have a solution for you. There you go, on your way. She used it all the time.
It works.
That was a good one.
It works. Great. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if we should sharing saying appreciation, and thank you, Rob, for that example, or thank you, Marianne. So we're right at the mark where we'd like to move this to a Q&A with all of you. And I already see a hand up. Delynn, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the really tough question that I bet at least 50% of the women in this audience are thinking. So I'm going to be very vulnerable right now. If I am the type of person that does not have a financial advisor, and I think I need one after I just spent all of this time listening to everyone. But where is the point, or is there a point that if I walk in, you're going to look at me like I am way too poor to need a financial advisor, and I have already mucked my life up. So, and basically Rob, in his head, because he's way too nice to say it, is, lady, you're just a basket case, go home. Seriously, is there a point where you say, you wouldn't say it, but should someone be concerned that there is not enough money in the bank to come talk to a financial advisor? Do I have to have money to come talk to you?
The straight answer is absolutely not. Number two is, the financial services industry has conditioned the sales behind the scenes in all these investment banks to take away their incentive to service anyone with $5 to $10. There are minimums. Every year they change the compensation inside these Wall Street firms. And as they constantly move the goalpost for these sales organizations, trust me, I was with Morgan Stanley for 15 years. So they constantly change the goalpost and the compensation. Internally, they're automatically saying for an account under 50,000, for an account under 100,000, you will not get paid. So oftentimes it works, the whole financial services firms works against us. It really does. Because then you're like, oh gosh, I don't have enough, and then no one's giving you the attention on the other side when you actually want the attention you need, right? I always say demand what you deserve, right? If you're gonna take a proactive approach in your financial life from this point forward. That's the idea of this. Whether it's coming into our office and having that conversation and then I point you in the right direction, or if we have a right fit discussion of what I do is right for you, you will know because I'm a fiduciary, I have a legal obligation, and that's what you want. You don't have to come see me, but find somebody who is a fiduciary to say, here, I want an honest review. Listen, we go to a doctor for a checkup all the time, right? A second opinion. You should go financially for a second opinion. And yes, you already know it's bad, but you don't also know that it could be good, right? You're automatically walking in like, oh, you're looking at yourself in the mirror, financially speaking, and you don't like what you see. Well, what about the expertise that you have that you're not asking for help, right? Start now. Worst case scenario is, oh, I'm sorry, but a fiduciary won't. And like in our practice, we have it's called a no asshole policy. And that means it's for people that we want to help. Okay, it's honest to God. We're not chasing business, okay? And I apologize if that offends somebody, but we really will sit down with somebody, and if we can honestly help you, and we will listen to you, and we believe that we can make a difference in your financial life, we will show you how and we will help you. But we're not gonna run after, and if we send no to $10 million accounts because that person on the other side is just not the right fit, right? They're just not the right. I've helped people with not much money and a lot of debt. Why? Because that's a great person. Absolutely. My mom raised me right.
I like that. I could
just build on.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Delaney, that question, people ask that same question. I think it's an excellent one to ask for your career, but people ask that always because the word estate seems like you have to have that sprawling ground.
Well, but I thought it would be bogarting the Q&A.
No, but I have the same response. Full response. But it doesn't matter how little or how much you have. It's the point of going back to the planning. And I say to people, if nothing else, plan for your own incapacity because this is not analytical, but 50% are going to become incapacitated in some manner before you die. So it's either your incapacity is death or something has happened where you can no longer effectuate your healthcare or financial decision making. And so if you don't think you have enough money, you sure need to make sure that someone's going to, if nothing else, who's going to make your healthcare decisions when you can't? Yeah. And that can be 11 years I went in and out of being my dad because remember he kept dying and then obviously he couldn't make his decisions. And so then when he was ready, I'd step back. And so if nothing else, that is not about money. That is about your body and your personal autonomy. You want someone to step into your shoes. And whilst that's happening, someone's got to be paying your bills. So someone needs to have that authority. But there isn't you need to have a certain amount of money to actually have an estate because we all want our things to go to someone that we want them to go to.
To both of your points, and both really good, but being incapacitated, needing care is not necessarily because you got old or because you got sick or you're getting ready for retirement. Surprises happen. So I would add to this in having negotiate with your own fears if you're feeling a little insecure about reaching out to your network, your trusted network who may know people that can take that question as it relates to healthcare planning and your financial planning. I have a second cousin. She's all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. She's beautiful. She's 26. She's a newlywed, and she and her husband just left Michigan and live on Balboa Island. So life is pretty good right now. Pretty simple. Yeah, they look out over the ferry and the Ferris wheel. But I'm a trusted person to my second cousin. And she and her husband, they're again 26 and 27, kind of embarrassed to ask you this, but we think we need a financial advisor, and we're earning money and we don't know how to save. Basics. Reach out. My point is it doesn't have to be for later in life and greater wealth. Start out of the gate. Start high school, college. Or right out of college too. And there's certainly a lot of people who are happy to take that phone call and make a recommendation. Okay, we still, do we have another? We still have some time in the back, on the right? Well,
Yep.
down the row from me.
Yep.
This side.
Oh, I don't have to get up.
Thank you. Can you stand?
I just was going to say that you mentioned a name earlier that was a financial advisor, and that's Dave Ramsey. And in the last year and a half, or I'd say maybe 2, I've been listening to him, and it's changed my life totally, because I never was able to save money. I have done some investments with my family, so and they were good investments, and I did pretty good, but there were so many things I was not doing right. And first off, it was just listening to him and listening to all the people call in. And I was thinking, boy, they're doing stupider stuff than I've done. And I called him my big brother, because I wouldn't have been able to do some of the things I've done, but yet I still have a long way because I have a lot of things that I still need to do. But I did find a financial advisor, and I've invested money in, and I have money coming out of my accounts to go into that investment, which I wouldn't have never done if it wasn't for listening to him.
That's
Thank
wonderful.
you for sharing.
Let me just follow up on that, and there's another money technique I can give you guys. But that's incredible. I mean, I hear those stories all the time, and all it takes is just literally, it's social media. Just start following or listening, or it can your daily drip of financial information. And there's so many good quality people out there. He's one of the best. I really believe there's an initiative that I want to start and get this in the Coachella Valley High Schools out here and Xavier College. Like, we have to have the financial education.
And colleges.
50% of Congress right now cannot pass a financial literacy course. But the irony is that they make laws and they spend our money. They can't pass the test. There's a problem. There's irony there. So I am seriously concerned about the future of America. Like, literally, you go to college, you get that bag of M&Ms, you get that credit card. That bag of M&Ms could stop you from getting a house, a car, whatever, but you just think you're getting a bag of M&Ms at a college kid. This is not right? So that needs to change, and I'm really proud. That's really awesome. That's great news. I think that can happen for everyone in this audience. And it doesn't have to be through me at all. It's just like, you take the initiative yourself, find somebody, there's a network, go to your social media, Daily Drip.
Great, thank you, Rob. We have a couple of questions. We got about 5 minutes, so just, I think we take 2 or 3 questions.
This is really quick. I just wanted to echo what he said about
Can you take the microphone?
literacy in the financial literacy in the high schools and colleges. I came to this, didn't want to wake up early, just like you. And my daughter, who's in college, is really sharp with her money. She actually has savings while she's in college. She's working, she's doing all this other stuff.
Wonderful.
And she's trying to find a place to put her money. And here I am today, and you're talking about this and empowering women, and I'm so thankful. I said that to you in the hallway, and thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
amazing. So.
Thank you for your comment. There's a lady behind you, the blue sweater.
I'd also like to make a comment for everybody, regardless of age, because of the work that I do with families living with Alzheimer's and dementia. Everyone, Valerie, to your points, people will say, well, I don't have an estate. And I say, do you have a car? Yeah. You have an estate. You own something. And you have to protect it. And obviously we're talking about something more significant than a car. But you cannot, you reach a point, you could be just in a horrible car accident and you can't make financial decisions and you cannot be on hold. So if you're 20 or 65 or 85, you need someone that you truly trust. You need a power of attorney for financial decisions who can work on your behalf. You can take it back, just as Valerie did back and forth with the health care. If you don't have someone who's going to represent what you want for your health needs, you can just be on a machine forever. And I don't say these things to be dramatic. I say these things because I see it every day. And people often say, well, we're married. That's lovely. That doesn't cover all the decisions that have to be made because you don't have it in writing. So, you know, they're just really crucial things that we don't learn in school and we don't hear at the dinner table. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question from this lady in the middle. We have 2 more minutes.
Yes, Rob, you mentioned credit score. According to Dave Ramsey, the bigger your debt, the higher your credit score. Could you address that?
Yeah, so there are ways and techniques, the way their credit, I mean, you could speak to this too. You want to, I've been talking a lot.
They just talk about how much you owe and how, like, what your maximum, let's say you had a $1,000 credit card. They want to see you owe less than $450 on that card. And you could have 10 cards with minimum balances, but if you have one that's maxed out, it's really going to really affect your credit score. And I see it every day. If you have like a 780 credit score, you almost get a quarter less of an interest rate. I mean, credit scores are really impacting our younger generation for sure. Because you could still get a loan at a 580 credit score, let's not forget, it costs you so much more money. But when you're financing, like when you finance a home, still if you finance $500,000 and it's $500,000 and it hasn't been reviewed very long, that affects your credit score in a negative manner. So it's important how much you guys borrow and then how much you're retaining on your limits that you have. And so it doesn't matter if you have, they just basically want 3 open trade lines minimum to get good credit scores.
And on credit, real quick, don't close your oldest credit line. That will kill your score. So like when you go tidy up your credit, the credit score that you've had the longest is giving you your most history, your credit worthiness, your reporting. So don't go get rid of that Bank of America credit line that you've had that you don't ever use, even though you got it 30 years ago.
Even when you go to Home Goods for the 10% off, you know, we've all done it. We're like, okay, we'll apply, give us 10% off, and then you immediately pay it off and close it. It affects your credit score in an awful manner. Like you might as well leave it open. You might as well charge $20 on it every month and pay it off because you have credit history established. If you keep closing it, it's definitely going to affect you negatively.
I just wanted to thank you for bringing this up. I have a small two businesses, and they're family-owned businesses. I mean, my husband and I own them, and now we have these adult kids, and we have one daughter who works at the company, and the other 2 don't. And I just don't know what to do with that now because my kids are in their 20s and 30s. We have a business, and you know, the other ones, there's some that are entitled. They think that they can have whatever and just text me for money, and where the other one's working every day at the facility. So I just want to thank you for bringing this up. I don't know what the answer is, but I know I'm going to keep searching because I was just, as a mom and the CEO of the company, you know, it's so different. And it's been very stressful for me. So I just want to thank you for having this conference. I saw it come through my email, and I just knew I had to be here because of my own financial situations.
Well, thank you for being here. Wealth within families, one, it's not easy to discuss, right? And it's a very private matter. And we harbor that, and that turns into stress. So I see this every day. That's why we're doing this seminar, this summit here. But here's a little technique for you with regards to what I've counseled my clients as it relates to that. And I hope my girls are listening. Because fair is not equal.
Yeah.
Right? Fair is not equal and equal is not fair. So as it relates to when one has a different work ethic, one thinks mom and dad's savings and loan is always open. Right? They both see that and it's resentment, and you're a mother that wants to do the best, right? At your own expense. It's going to happen. If there's a give and take, you're going to give, they're going to take. That's it. That's what it is. Anybody else, right? So, here's what I also want to say. So protect your finances like you protect your children, right? Protect your money like you protect your. My last one, I know we got to go. Our last one. So as it relates to investments, somebody mentioned investments, and I got involved in investments, and I have these. So here's something that you can use a cocktail party conversation, or when somebody's pitching you an investment, right? I get pitched investments, I don't know, 100 times a week. So my job is to vet that for my clients, do the due diligence. That's why I have my Wharton Business School due diligence background. And they've taught us to ask a bunch of questions, right? Questions. I don't have to be the expert. I want to know. So the first question when you make an investment is how your money's going to get out. How your money's going to get out. When will I see the return of principal? If it's a CD, is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? Is it 12 months? Is it an annuity? I'll never see my money out of that one. Is it a private equity investment? Never see my money. Is it a REIT, R-E-I-T? Is it an investment with my family member? When will I get my money back? Or when they start talking about how complicated it is, and the person that's pitching you, or the person that's your family member, that's basically, if it gets more and more and more and more complicated, it's kind of fun to watch. Just sit back and just let it go. Well, and then they'll get to the point where I really don't know, but I got a guy. Go talk to my guy. I mean, then it's not. So the more complicated it is, it's not right. Right? Protect your money like you protect your family. So ask a bunch of questions. And then another one is, if it's high, ask why. And I don't mean in California. Right. But I mean, if it's high, ask why. Meaning, if it's a high rate of return, that's interesting. That's outside rate of return than we're normally used to. Tell me more about that investment. That sounds too good to be true, because it is. If it's high rate of return, ask why. Oh, we're getting 14% rate of returns on these, double grant deeds, whatever. Wonderful. When did you see your return money? Well, no, I've got 6. I'm on my 6th one. Which one paid off? None of them. But I'm going to do my 7th one because I'm getting 15% rate of return. They're already telling you it's really not going to work out, right? So those are protect your money like you protect your family. So I appreciate you guys listening today.
Yeah. No, those are really good tips, right? Everybody. So we are out of time. I want to thank the panelists today, these successful entrepreneurs in the Coachella Valley for spending their time. And I want to thank all of you today for your input and listening about negotiation of your time, yourself, your priorities towards empowerment. Wishing you all a wonderful 2020 and decade ahead for implementing the art of negotiation into your own lives and into your own empowerment for dreams come true. Thank you so much.